I hope I didn't offend on the haircut thing. Kimber's a good man.
Yeah.
Well, why don't we, we're a little early, but can we jump right into,
Sheriff?
Ever too early to talk budget?
Never.
no, but
Sandy has her.
As long as there's no haircut cracks, I'll be okay
I'm
with
ready,
that.
I've got the right, I've even got the sheriff's page ready to go. Thank you.
Is this the exact same as what's in here on the statements of revenue and expense? I don't think so. This is just from the sheriff.
Yeah, these are just kind of the own notes I made, so I can explain it easier when we talk about the revenues. I can
Thanks.
follow along some. And I don't mean to be rude, I had some dental work yesterday, and it hurts like crazy, so I gotta be sipping on something a little bit.
did you go duck hunting?
What's that?
Did you go duck hunting?
I didn't go duck hunting yet.
Didn't that open up this last weekend?
Last weekend, yeah. No, we didn't go. I ended up having a bad tooth and swollen like that big all weekend, and finally got the dentist yesterday and got it taken out, so it's,
Did you cry?
I wanted to.
Okay. I just wanted to watch the video.
Pain. Oh,
I took the needle nose to it Friday and Saturday. I couldn't get it out myself, so I had to go to the dentist. But
And the dentist says, what happened to this cow?
Sheriff, go ahead and please share with us.
okay, I think you've got the budget in front of you. So if I can maybe start off with the revenue piece, and that's why I handed this out, because this is just kind of how I've tracked it along over the years. So our revenues overall are going to be up about 451,000, and a lot of that's came because we've done a lot of work at the legislature and with some of our contract people to get our daily rates up for the jail housing. If I can find that one. So just to give you just a little update, so in 2019, with the Department of Corrections, our daily rate was $53.93, and we just got notified yesterday that our rate in 2024 is going to $71 a day for the inmates. But that's been a lot of work the last couple of years at the legislature, and actually coming up with a formula that they'll pay what the statute says they have to pay. So we've seen a lot of increases in that. There's the $71 a day is just a base rate. If we offer some like cognitive programs, GEDs, some life skill type things to the inmates, that's an extra $5 a day. And we don't do a lot of the therapeutic treatment because that takes physicians and doctors and licensed therapists. But if we did have those programs, that would be an additional $13.85 a day. So we do have Franklin County inmates. We've always just charged them what the state rate is. So 2020, they were at 53. That'll be an increase to 71. And we renegotiated our contract with the U.S. Marshals this year, and they were at 59 now, and they're going to $87 a day. So there's been a pretty substantial increase just in the daily rate for the inmates. But we've also, 3 years ago, with the patrol contracts, we put 3-year increases into the patrol contracts. They've gone up every year with the number of hours that they are providing. So we've seen a pretty substantial increase in the contracts with patrol as well. Those are the big things that generated the increase in revenues, really just the contracting pieces of it.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Somebody mentioned the other day that on the sheriff and as you're patrolling and giving out tickets or citations or whatever else, that they've seen a decrease in that? Is that true or what?
Like a decrease in traffic citations?
Yes.
Some areas they're up and some they're down. And I've had this conversation with the cities and towns all the time, is we write tickets to deal with public safety issues, not as a revenue generator. The county doesn't see any money in citation numbers. And I think the bigger issue with what the cities and the courts are feeling is the state just keeps taking more and more of.
And that's where it was coming from, was a city rather than from
Yeah.
what the county was. And so
Yeah.
that question came to me and I'm like, I don't know the answer. sir, so.
Yeah, we take care of public safety issues. We don't write tickets just for the sake of writing tickets. And I don't dictate what tickets that our deputies have to write. They can have their discretion, and I hope they use their discretion well, and when it's warranted, it's warranted. Overall, with our overall numbers, our citation numbers have been pretty steady for the last 5 or 6 years. Some particular cities, they might be down just because the public safety or the traffic problems aren't there. And some of them are up because new growth and new roads, and they have some bigger issues in their communities.
Okay, thank you.
I don't know if I've made this budget, sure.
The line that's the contracts with the cities, is that special project service contracts? Is that what that is?
Yes, that's the city contracts. These are like, the contracting numbers are hard to look. I think I probably shoot a little bit low sometimes. I don't want the budget balanced off what I would like the contract numbers to be, but we've averaged about 110 inmates. On average, we've had as much as, like in the state, we've had as much as 120, and we've been down to about 105 at some points. But that 110 number is a pretty conservative number as to what they can be. And I shot low a little bit with the marshals too. They're just, I can never guarantee what the contract numbers are going to be. So I'd rather shoot low than shoot high and come up with a number that we're not going to hit.
I noticed your liquor allocation is 110, that's pretty steady.
Oh, I thought that's what he was drinking.
If I thought that would help, I would have done that today as well. So I don't know if anybody understands what the liquor allocation is.
I don't.
So what it is that's pass-through money from all the cities. So every city, and the county's included in that, but every city gets a portion back from the state on how many alcohol sales were made in their communities, how many alcohol arrests got made in their communities. The state figures all that out, and it goes back to all the cities, but it has to be used for alcohol enforcement. So for the cities, that's just pass-through money back to us to spend on extra alcohol assignments, overtime assignments, DUI assignments. That's where most of that money comes from. The county does get some with unincorporated county, what we do. I think the attorney's office gets a piece of that for the prosecution. So they had, the 110,000 is the law enforcement side. I think county attorney's office has a piece of that they get for the prosecution side as well. So that is 100% just pass-through money. 95% of it's just pass-through money. If you look at this next page that I passed out, this is where I say, I don't know if I made this easier or harder, but it's easier for me to understand it. So I've actually added more budgets to the sheriff's office than decreased budgets. The reason I did that is when Chief Deputy Bilodeau retired, Matt Bilodeau retired, is I opted not to do another chief deputy. But instead, I created another lieutenant's position, but then I divided up all the divisions we had. And I'll just give you an example as to why. So our patrol division, our criminal division, lieutenant at the time, he had 35 patrolmen, 6 sergeants, and all of investigations and the schools to supervise with one person. So he had 60 people and pretty high energy, high maintenance divisions. So by creating another division, with not creating the chief deputy, is I broke down all the divisions. So what you'll see on the far right side of that is how the divisions got broken down. So criminal division is now investigation, school resource, support services stayed pretty much the same. We've made patrol has its own budget now, so it's just divide this span of control really more than anything. But when we did that, what I did with the budgets and what you'll see in your packets is, so we've had 4 budgets now. We've had patrol, support services, corrections, and an admin budget. What we did when I made these other divisions is we split those out again, just so we knew exactly what patrol was costing us. We knew what investigations and school resource was costing, rather than have it all lumped into one. We also found a lot of things, like every division in my office had their own office expense line item. And some were buying ammo, and some were doing this, and some were trading back and forth. So we went through all the budgets, we took out everything that was an office-wide purchase, not breaking it down between divisions, and put it all under the administration budget, which has its own lieutenant now. And that took like all the utilities, it took all the office expenses, it took all the housekeeping items, took all the janitorial stuff, because beforehand, that was all kind of parsed out between every division, and we found a lot of savings by not each division just having their own little pool of money, paying their own janitors. I mean, one crude example of it is we had 5 different copy machine contracts. All of them at a different rate, all of them signed at a different time. The jail had their own contract, second floor had their own contract, third floor had their own contract. So by condensing these and just getting all that office-related stuff that's not division-specific into one place, we actually were able to save quite a bit of money just in condensing that down and put it in one spot. So when you see these line items over here, most of those are in wages, because wages are probably 85 or 90% of what our total budgets are. But those expense lines, as you go through the budget, that is specific to what it takes to have a patrol division, to have investigations and school resource, what it takes to operate just the jail and not all the other things that have just been jammed into everybody's budgets over the years. So with all that, 2024's budget will be about $1.2 million less than it was in 2023. But what that number does include is it includes the full year's worth of the impound facility, which we're not going to get there this year because we're only going to really truly be open half the year. But it also includes 2 full-time employees for the contracts through patrol deputies through the contracts with the cities. Any questions on that page, and then we can,
IT, that amount there, is that what, does Bart help you out on all that stuff?
No, what we did with IT is every division before had their own line item for cell phones and for computer rollovers and for Spielman stuff. It's like, why does every division just doing that? So where IT down there at our office, they've always had a little bit of a budget just because they've taken care of our computer rollovers and things like that out of our budget. I just took it out of all the divisions and put it just under IT, so not all the divisions were buying their own stuff. And we've got them all on rollovers and turnaround times with IT. So it just made sense to take that money out of the divisions and put it into one place so we know what's being bought, when it's being bought, that we're not tripling up on things, doubling up on things, we should be buying the same things. I think it's just going to be a lot more efficient having it in the place that's actually maintaining those computers and those programs.
Thank you.
Okay, I just have one question, sorry.
Sure.
And it might be in the details of everything you just explained, but on the administration line on the budget compare page, it went from 1.9 million in 23 to 4.5 million in 24.
Yeah, that's where I pulled all those general office things out of all the divisions and put it into one place. And that picked up all the employees, it picked up all the expenses, it picked up all the janitorial. So yeah, theirs did increase, but the rest of them decreased through the individual budgets.
Okay.
And just for curiosity's sake, in 21, is that what you were doing in 21 also, because it was 5 million there for 21 and then it went down substantially?
Well, 21 is when we budgeted for the animal shelter. That was the
okay.
first year we put that money into that. So
All right,
that's why you saw the big decrease in 22 and moving into 23.
thanks.
So that's generally speaking what we're doing down there as far as budgets. I don't want it to be confusing when you open up things like, God, we just went from, I got a lot of budgets because I got Search and Rescue has their own budget, IT has their own budget, Explorers have their own budget, Emergency Management has their own budget, so I just increased the total number of budgets by 2.
excuse my ignorance, what is Explorers?
Explorers, the Explorers are the scout group. They run the Posse Burger down there.
Oh,
So it's that group of kids that are,
question, Carl.
It's your training pool.
it's a training pool. So it's that group of kids who, they're between 15 and 21 who have some interest in law enforcement. We get them signed up for that group through the high schools and the law enforcement classes. They get to see what we're about. We get to see what they're about. They kind of raise their own funds. They're kind of a pass-through. Whatever they raise, they keep, and that's how we fund that.
That's this year, didn't they?
What's that?
Did they do quite well on the burger thing this year?
Yeah, they did very well. We've been able to give 4 or 5 scholarships and paid ways to the academies, and that was kind of the whole point of when Mounted Posse couldn't make it, we gave that to the Explorers, and we just used that money to get kids through the academy. We've actually been able to hire 3 or 4 of those academy kids and bring them on full-time, and they've got to see us, and we've got to see them for 3, 4, or 5 years just to make sure it's a good fit for all of us. So it's a great program.
I have questions on the revenue, back to that, because I'm looking at inmate housing from ICE. That's been substantial before, and now it's negligible. And also on ankle monitors, just explain those 2 decreases to me. They seem big decreases.
Yeah,
Radio.
what's that?
Jason Williams talked about that, the ICE.
Yeah, I know that's a big hot topic right now.
Yeah, I heard.
We discontinued our contract with ICE, and it was a good thing for a while. But they have such a set of standards that we're just not going to abide by those standards. We're not building their own barber shops. We're not going to have their own special diets. We're not going to be their personal mail delivery people. They just make it so impossible, the feds make it so impossible to house ICE detainees that it wasn't worth the county's.
So we're not the only county doing that, so what are they doing? So
That's a good question.
Going to Montana.
There was really no counties, so the only counties that I know that ever took ICE was Utah County, and this has probably been 8 years ago maybe. Utah County held a lot of ICE inmates, but because of the same reasons I just talked about, Utah County discontinued their contract with ICE. Then we did it for a while, and then Washington County did it for a while, but no other jail in the state would ever really take them. Now, we'll take a fresh arrest from ICE if their agents are out and they need to arrest somebody. We can't take federal, they are federal. Here's the problem with them. They call them detainees because they're not, we were housing people that are somewhere in the process of deportation. But because they classify them as detainees and not inmates, we really had to create 2 separate classes of inmates. And it's pretty hard to run a jail when you've got the inmates over here being treated one way, but you got the detainees over here being treated at a higher, different level than what inmates are. All of our patrol guys do a great job. If they arrest somebody for a state crime, they bring them and book them into jail. We contact ICE and say, hey, you guys might want to check this one. And even if they come back as an illegal immigrant, ICE probably isn't going to put a hold on them anyway, depending on what the crime is. So the sheriffs are getting beat up about the ICE thing right now, but I think we've got that resolved with the governor's office, the legislature, and an understanding with ICE as to what the problems have truly been.
Other questions?
this helped make sense, because I went
Yeah.
through your budget and I was lost when you said you created a new one and that, so that's.
Well,
Thank you.
that's what it was, and I knew it would probably be confusing when you don't see it, but I just really wanted to break all the budgets down into specifically what does it take to run patrol, what does it take to run investigation in the schools, and anything that's office-related, we broke it down and just put all that consolidated into one place.
You mentioned that this includes wages, all that, everything.
This, I don't think,
Except,
Brittany-
except for what's.
this
what-
doesn't have wages. I think what it does include is the full-time employees that came through the contracts.
Okay.
But I don't think wages, because you guys haven't seen the wage proposal yet, so I don't know if they know what number to put in there.
Yeah, that's,
Yeah, these are current rates on wages, so any increase is not part of this today, because you guys haven't,
They eat into this $1.2 million you're saving, so.
yeah, it'll eat into that and eat into
Many other things.
the revenue increases as well.
Okay.
Thank you.
But I'm happy to go through detail, line by line, in each budget if you would like to, but generally speaking, that's what I did with the budget this year.
I had a question about the impound facility, just 'cause that was on my mind. And it looks like the total expenditures are gonna be met by the property tax and the impound and housing fees. So is it like a net cost or a zero cost to the county taxpayers? Or,
Well,
it
that-
looks to me like that's a wash, but I wanted to make sure that was true.
That's the hope. Now, what I don't know is, because it's what the revenues are gonna be every month, we've really only been in operation for 3 months, that to be able to tell you exactly what that looks like, I don't know. Finance puts in the property tax and all that stuff, but my goal is to have it just be neutral. And if we can keep it there, I think that would be fantastic.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
John,
Appreciate it.
I like these pages. Thanks.
Yeah.
Well, I'm a dummy, so I have to look at things.
Go chew on it.
Yeah.
Do something. I'm feeling better, though. It hurts less having to get that tooth pulled than it hurt all weekend before it was.
Would you like some chocolate-covered cashews?
But I really want
Do
some
you have any?
No.
sunflower seeds. I can't have those either.
Well, actually, I ate them on the way down. My wife gave me a handful as I was leaving my house.
Here to walk through.
Thank you, Sheriff.
All right, well, I'm gonna start with our professional services line and just go through our budget and then come back to our personnel, because Amy's gonna help me a little bit with that. So when we talk about I guess before I start there, just as our budget as a whole, this is my first year going through the budget process. And so for comparison, I looked at all of the other counties similar to our size in the state to see where we were sitting. I was actually pretty pleased. So we have a population about 140,000 and a budget of 2.5 million. Washington County, which is the closest county in size to us in the state, has a $4.4 million budget for their attorney's office. So we have 76% of their population, and we do our business on 56% of their budget. Tukwila County is the next closest. They have exactly about almost down to the exact 50% of our population. They have 76% of our budget. Weber County, we're 53% of their population and have 40% of their budget. Some of the other counties in the state that are much smaller than us, you have Summit County, very much smaller than us. Only have about 4 prosecutors. They have Park City, so they probably have some ritzy offices or something, but they got a $2.8 million budget. Wasatch County, similar, $1.7 million budget. So I think for maybe punching above our weight class, we're doing pretty good in Cache County for what we have. Do things on a pretty...
Office has been credited very, very high on sex crimes and prosecution of that too, so.
Yes, and I thank the council for letting us expand our special victims over the last couple years. We've added 2 prosecutors to that, and if you look at what our numbers have done and what we've been able to do with the same people we have in-house, I'm very happy with what we've been able to do on less than what other counties do it with, and that's a credit to the people we have in our building. So when we talk about professional services, some of this might seem almost like, what subscriptions and memberships does Cache County have? That's the couple services. RIMN, it's Rocky Mountain Information Network. It's a federally funded group. It consists of Arizona, Idaho, Montana, Utah. They provide law enforcement support and intelligence. So we've used them on a few cases where we've sent them a whole bunch of video and they've been able to stitch it all together. Sent them GPS from ankle monitors and they've been able to plot it on maps for us to use for trial. That's one of the memberships. We have several other memberships of similar things just to give support to our office, give us some extra resources. Travel, that is travel to and from training and conferences that we have. And you'll notice in this budget, I'm requesting similar to last year in most things. There's going to be a few things where I'm asking for a little bit more, especially as far as training. That's further down the list. Professional and technical, you'll see at in September of this year, we've only used 38,000 of our 120. That's not counting some of the bills from Davenport Road that we are just getting. That's professional and technical support in the form of like Davenport, outside legal counsel assisting on complex cases. Also, our expert witnesses we've retained for criminal cases. One case we had this year was a really horrible case, a child sex abuse case. We got a sentence of 100 years to life in prison on that case, but it did cost us about $20,000 to get the DNA testing done, fly an expert out, and have that deal done. So those can add up pretty fast. We have another case we're working on where we're probably going to have about $30,000 in forensic accounting on a complex financial crime. So those can add up quickly. My goal is to over budget that and not use the full thing, but I don't want to be in a situation where we have something terrible happen and have to hurry and come to the council and ask for money to pay an expert that we need tomorrow. Software packages. I know the council's heard from me on this before. We had $300,000 in our budget this year for those packages. 150 of that is ARPA funds. The other 150 is going to be our yearly cost going forward. We haven't made that. It's a lot of work to transition. It's not just hit a button and all of a sudden you have a new program. We have a whole group of people in our office, probably about 10 people. Danny, is that about right? Working every single week, helping them through that process, doing things on our side that we have to do, and we're still probably 6 months out. So that 150 from ARPA is going to need to be rolled over at some point next year. They're not billing us until they can give us the product. But in the meantime, we've had to keep another system running, so that's what those costs are, is our other system we have to keep running this year. And I've accounted for that in our budget with that 170, because we're going to have to keep those running for a time next year as well.
I thought there was a program that wasn't supported.
It's not supported by the company. We still have to pay for support through a third party,
Okay.
and we have to pay for our data storage because the county's on-site data storage is full. So we've had to transfer things to a cloud account. Part of our funding from ARPA is to transfer all of that from that cloud account over to the integrated account with our new system. But until then, we still have to pay for that cloud storage, unfortunately. Witness and trial costs, that's a little bit different than our expert witness costs. That's just the money we spend subpoenaing witnesses, paying for witnesses to travel here from out of state if they've moved away, making sure that we're able to get, say we have a victim who moves away from the area that has to come back to testify, we put them up in a hotel when we're forcing them to come here. So that's what those costs go towards. Then education and training, and that's one that's having a significant increase, and there's a couple of reasons for that. One, in the past, our VAWA and VOCA grants have provided funding for training. With the cuts across the board in those grants, we just aren't getting that funding for training. It's funding positions, but not all of the extra things. And then second, we've had a pretty high attrition rate in our office over the last few years. I've been here 6 years, and there's only 3 other attorneys that have been here that same time out of the 13 that we have. So we have a really young staff. And part of that is the growing pains of getting people up to speed, getting them the training they need. Another portion of that is we now have 2 investigators. They have required post-training. So I'm accounting for those 2 investigators as well. Going down to any questions on anything in our professional services.
Yeah, on that 120, you said that the Davenport wasn't in there, but yet I went through your thing and it showed 40,000. So is 40,000 reflected, or that's the anticipated cost?
So we're requesting 40,000. So in that 120, that's broken down.
That's where the 40 for Davenport then comes
Yeah,
in.
so let me go to this. So we have these lines for professional and technical. And some of them have talked to Brittany. We're probably going to be making some changes for next year because I think some of these are the same thing listed in two lines, frankly. Our conflict resolution council and our miscellaneous services, I think that all should just be one line, but we didn't get that changed this year as we were going through the process. But then you see, and our consulting fees, I think those are all really the same thing. We're using them for similar things, so we're breaking those down a little bit too much because I'm asking, is it miscellaneous or is it consulting? Is it forensic? Evidence gathering? It's kind of hard to break those down, but 40,000 of that is for the attorney fees for Davenport Road budgeted for next year. And that's the same as was budgeted for this year for Davenport.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions on that group? So our supplies and other services, the first one is law library, which is kind of funny. We're not actually spending $18,000 a year on books. That's our LexisNexis and Westlaw, which is our legal research search engines where we look at case law. We do buy a set of Utah code books every year, the updated version. Usually a full version for the public. People do come and use our library on occasion to do their own legal research. That's made available if we escort them in. Usually, I don't want to stereotype, but elderly people that are looking into something on their own and want to spend some time in there. And then we have a set of the current law books for the public to examine as well. And then there's a few attorneys that like having the physical copy of the book. So that's the books we buy, but most of that is for our online research service subscriptions. Office expenses, costs for just running our office, the different expenses we have through the year for supplies and things along those lines. Communications, you'll see that's going up this year. Part of that is the new cell phone policy with our office or with the county anticipating that change. Some people were getting less than the amount in that. And then we're getting cell phone stipends as part of our grants. Those all went away this year through those cuts. So a bunch of employees lost that cell phone stipend that was paid for through grants. And that's just from the overall cuts in the grants, having less money there, putting the money we do have towards salary and benefits. Special department supplies, that is a line. We use that for our drug court and mental health court graduation. When people graduate, we'll certificates, lunch, things along those lines. Usually that's reimbursed through the Friends of Drug Court and Mental Health Court. If they have money in their accounts, they usually reimburse that amount. The state grant drug prevention, I'm not sure. That's not something we have budgeted. I think that might be a relic of a past.
We don't want to prevent drug use anymore.
It's a account that we're not using. And then you'll see the special department supplies traffic. Last year and every year in the past, we've had a traffic school. When I took over, I realized we were running that in the not so lawful fashion, so I did away with the traffic school. Now we still have the traffic school option. We're just not paying someone to teach the traffic school and buying the supplies. There's an online traffic school through the state of Utah, so people can still get their traffic ticket dismissed. We just have a QR code that they scan and they bring in proof that they've completed the traffic school and pay the fee related to that. Also, there was a new state law where if you get a ticket, you can do that on your own without going through the typical traffic school process that went into effect this year. And so I anticipated even if we would have kept our traffic school, it wouldn't have been, you'll see later on revenue, where there was revenue coming in from traffic school as well, that was going to drop off substantially because of that new law. Insurance, that's insurance related to our building space and the vehicles assigned to our office. That's, I think the council knows that's split up amongst the departments, and
Miscellaneous services.
not sure what miscellaneous services is. We don't have that anymore.
Miscellaneous services, 0.
Then going into our minor equipment and maintenance, this is another where we have substantial increase. One of the reasons for that is our investigators' fuel had been coming out of the victim services fuel budget, which I'm not sure how that started. I think it was because the vehicle was coming off a grant that victim services was able to get our investigator a vehicle. So we moved that fuel budget and the fuel budget for our new investigator into this, and also included a little bit for law enforcement equipment if they're, and vehicle maintenance, say if there's got 2 flat tires or something, we don't want to be in a budget hole, not have any money set aside for that. Then non-capitalized equipment for our office, that is all of the our copy machines, the equipment we have, computers and things that are up in our office, the things that aren't part of our actual structure. I believe some of, I'm not sure, Brittany, why our 2023 budget was such a large amount. Yeah.
Yeah, is there still a piece of equipment that was budgeted for that hasn't been purchased, that $50,000?
And that could be from some ARPA funding. Oh, yeah, that probably is investigator equipment that we've used. We've spent some of it and haven't gotten some of the others. So we've purchased a vehicle. We still have a vest and things out of that ARPA fund piece that we're working on. We also have another ARPA project for some updates to our office that probably will be rolled over. I don't know if we'll have all of those done during this budget year. And that's in the interdepartmental, that's between the software and the 2 other ARPA projects, the investigator equipment and the office updates. That's where that $299,000 comes from out of the 15,700 line. The one other thing I did want to touch on, during the past year, we had 3 municipal prosecution contracts last year. We hadn't received payment on those for some time. We did receive payment during the end of last year on Providence and Nibley, but we did cancel those contracts. We still have 1 municipal contract with Logan City. Been in the process of reviewing that. My cost analysis for 2023 on that contract is just under $300,000, and we're currently getting $110,000 from Logan City. And frankly, as we talked it through with the office, and I think Logan City probably should have an idea that this is coming. I talk about, do we ask for that money, or do we come to the council and say we can add another legal assistant, a victim advocate, and attorney for $110,000 a year, which takes, Logan City is not something that's within our, we do that on a contract basis. That's not part of our general duties as a county attorney's office. As we've added some of these other prosecutors, we haven't added another legal assistant. So we have the same number of legal assistants handling all of this huge caseload. So my fear is, even if we entered into a new contract with Logan, there's going to be some major changes coming to the justice courts in the next 5 years. And if you enter into a contract for $300,000 and then the justice courts, all those criminal cases go away and they don't need a prosecutor, that I'm coming to you saying, well, we have a budget shortfall of $300,000 because they no longer need a prosecutor over there. But we still need that prosecutor because all those cases are coming to the district court. So there is a 6-month window on canceling that contract. I'm going to have some conversations with Logan City going forward, but I will likely be talking to the council some more about that. I think you get a lot of bang for your buck if you consider you get 3 employees for $110,000. So any other questions as we go through that?
Did you
Yes.
say you're inclined to tell Logan that we're gonna cancel, we're not gonna renew that contract?
That's where I'm leaning. I think it makes more sense for our office looking forward into the future, where we're not tying up basically 3 employees on something that we're not statutorily required to do, especially when we have such a high workload on our district court cases, on our civil side. That would open up an attorney, a victim advocate, and a legal assistant to help on other things. And I kind of look at it, we've been subsidizing that prosecution for years. So it might be $110,000 out of our revenue, but when you look at it, we're getting a lot of bang for our buck for losing that $110,000. That would be my,
Wholeheartedly supporting you.
yeah, so it is tough when revenue's going down, but
Yeah.
we've talked in the office, do we go and try to negotiate that to make it worthwhile? But I saw what happened when we thought we were gonna lose $500,000 in grant funding. To me, that's even less stable than grant funding, because we don't know. Logan could cancel at any time. The legislature could make a move, and then I'm coming to you asking for $300,000 because we would be used to that revenue coming in to offset our costs.
Makes sense.
Makes sense.
And then the last thing, and I know Amy's standing here, I guess my number one goal in our office is public safety, and one of the most important things to be able to successfully prosecute cases, hold people accountable, is having good employees in our office that are making good choices, presenting good cases, have the resources. So employee retention is a big deal for me. In this last year, we've probably, I know it's not probably, we've had the longest stretch of time since 2020 where we haven't had any attrition in our office. That ended about an hour and a half before I walked down here. I had someone resign for significantly more money. A first-year attorney who's been here about a year for more money than I make as county attorney here locally. And I know I've been working on Amy with this as far as where pay is for our people. I know some of you on compensation are here, so I'll turn the time over to Amy, just kind of put forth where we're at as far as our compensation for attorneys. I know everyone wants more money, but I do hope that we can help them out a little bit this year. So if there's not any other questions, I'll turn time over to her.
Thank you, Dane. What are they doing upstairs?
Running up and down the hall.
What's that?
I texted him and said, hey, that's actually really loud.
Be a tag or something.
Rat control.
We're on it the first time.
Need to increase that budget.
Yeah.
While he's helping me pull that up so that you can see it, I just wanted to let you know that we have done a extensive market study and have looked at different attorneys' offices throughout the state, and also Salt Lake County, they commissioned someone to do a survey for them that we were a participant of, and so then we were able to get the results of that. And that is the information that we've used to come up with these numbers. So hard for me to see that. Are you able to make it bigger? If you can even just make it so we can see that, that would work good. Yeah. Yeah. And then if you'll just make it full screen. Okay, so that kind of gives us a little bit better of a view there. So what I did was compared all of the salary information and ran it through our compensation tool to come up with a new pay range, and then compared that to where we were at with our 2023 midpoint. Here if I drive. Let's see if we can get this. Okay, so that's what I wanted you to see. So that last column right there, that 2023 midpoint, that's where we're at currently. And then that midpoint that has the darker box around it is where we would be potentially going for 2024. So you can see the difference in where those are at. And then we look at this, and I took the percentage difference. And so you can see that the lower we get, the higher that percentage is of the discrepancy we are between the midpoints and the amounts that we need to be adjusting. So overall, when we take an average of that, there's a 24% increase that needs to happen to the pay plan for our attorney's office. Now, as we look at that, I know that that sounds like a really big number. But keep in mind that our attorney's office is one of our departments that it's mid-size, and so it does affect quite a few people. But overall, with benefits, it's going to be about $330,000 to make these adjustments for our attorneys. So I think when you look at the grand scheme of things, 24% sounds like a lot, but then when you break it down by the dollar, yes, $330,000 is still a lot of money, but in my mind, when I hear 24%, I think of a way bigger number than that. So that's kind of where we're sitting with that. I know that retention is really important, especially in our attorney's office, as we want to keep that knowledge and experience here. And so as we consider salaries and different things, I would just hope that the council would keep that in mind as we move forward. So
Is that 24% suggested increase built into this budget that we're looking at?
No.
it's not, no.
I
So
don't think any of the compensation.
the compensation is not built
is in
into any of your,
the budget that was given to us by the executive.
Right.
None of it is.
right. And Mike has been working with me. I'll be able to give a workshop presentation to you next time to give you the full picture of where we're at with compensation. But this is just your preview, your sneak peek.
Can you bring some drinks so we can take that?
What kind do you want?
Mountain Dew.
Okay. Catherine, did you?
Proposing that now if we're going to hire a new attorney that's a, first year attorney one, in 2024, they have a capacity to go and offer them 114,000.
So it wouldn't quite be 114,000 because our policy states that we can hire up to 95% of the midpoint. So we would take 95% of the 114 based on experience. That's where we would be able to hire them up to. If it's a brand new attorney coming right out of school that doesn't have any experience, we would more than likely be hiring them at that minimum rate.
Yeah, okay.
Would that do it? Could you find them?
Does that do it?
Could you find them?
Do you go and
Okay.
use that as a
I think
bargaining chip?
no.
So,
It's so pretty.
so
You can't afford a house.
yeah, it's tough for our new guys. I know, I saw one of them looking through the door right there, trying to see what's going on. But that is a reality. You have, last year, the council got us up to where we were about right on par with Salt Lake, and we were able to get 2 people from Salt Lake County up here. And then right after that, they went from, they're hiring a new attorney, and I think I sent, did I pass that one on to you too? About $112,000 a year. So it's
For a new.
for brand new, right out of law school
Are
attorney.
they getting them?
No, Salt Lake has, I think last time I heard, something like 40 to 50 openings in their prosecutor's office.
And that's what even with these adjustments and stuff.
The legal market in Utah has
Enough, you know, it's just
changed
still
a
bringing-
lot over the last just 2 or 3 years.
There's fewer attorneys?
I think there's fewer attorneys, there's definitely fewer people who want to be prosecutors.
Also, a couple of large regional firms opened up offices in Salt Lake, and so you have this pull-up effect where these big national firms who can pay top dollar cherry-picked all the best attorneys, and it's just created this upward pressure. So they, they take the AG's office, Salt Lake City, Utah County, and then all the lower municipalities, their top attorneys get lifted up to the AG, Salt Lake, and so on and so forth. So, you've had a couple of really big spenders show up in Salt Lake City, and they just created this upward pressure on wages, and it's lots of municipalities are dealing with the same problem.
Oh, yeah. And Amy reminded me of another thing. COVID really changed things in the legal profession. You have the ability, people realize you don't need to be in the office all the time. And so now, not in Cache County, not only are we competing just with what you can work in Cache County, but you can work really anywhere up and down the Wasatch Front, even as a prosecutor, because typically you only have court a couple days a week, so you can make that drive and work from home. So now we're competing against those places. The world's just gotten smaller, and so it is tough. We do already have an opening in our office that's just kind of been open. We have a plan to fill that, but probably won't do that until next year. But now we have another opening. So I'm hoping we're able to fill it, but we really have not got candidates the last couple times we've posted. We kind of the same few that we've already rejected applying. So it is a really tough situation. We've been lucky not to have a lot of turnover in the last year. We've gotten the spots filled that we had, but I know, including the person we've left, I think that's 6 attorneys that I know who have had a job offer or have a job offer right now in our office. And that's not including me. When we were down at the AG's office, me and the sheriff were down there. They'd offered me a job last year, and they said that job's still open, and by the way, this is what it pays now, and it's very close to what I make as county attorney, just on their ICAC. So it's a crazy legal market for sure, and it's a tough profession to just find someone, because you can't just go get someone trained. You need a 3-year doctoral degree, and in the prosecution fields, you have to have something different about you to want to come and do that day in and day out. And there's not a lot of people going to law school who want to go take that on for less money than you can make in the private practice.
So,
I'm sure glad you guys aren't listening to that.
yeah.
No,
We didn't know there's.
So Dave Erickson asked, will that do it if we were to take that
What
up?
is your ask?
Yeah, what is your,
I-
if you had the moon to have, what would be your ask for it?
well, I think all I can ask for is what our policy allows. So I'm asking for this, for what Amy's put together, and
To adopt the midpoint?
to adopt this
24%.
just 24% overall increase to give us that range for our hiring. If there's a case where we're just not finding a qualified candidate, or we start hemorrhaging people, or I have people lined up, I'll come back to the council and state my case. But as of right now, I think Amy has done a fantastic job. This makes us at least competitive. It's no longer that you can live for cheaper in Cache County, unfortunately, but there still is a draw to live here. And so I don't know if people are going to be willing to pay that Cache County tax, I guess, a little bit less money to live in a great place and work in a great place. But this at least gets us in that neighborhood where we're competing with some of those other counties. And there are other reasons people don't want to work for Salt Lake County. That's just the truth. So there's.
Got a list here I'd like to give you.
Yeah, that's, so I'm
Uh-oh, we have Salt Lake Tribune here, so we got better be quiet.
You didn't hear that.
but yeah, there's a lot of reasons people want to live here, there's a reason that Davis County, Weber County, Utah County are in a constant fight to take one up. It's just like what's been going on in law enforcement for the last 5 or 6 years, and that's spreading into the legal field, and especially into prosecutors' offices, because it's a unique skill set.
Okay.
Thank you.
Amy, can you give us a glimpse? I mean, are there other departments that are looking at more than this in order to bring into correlation if you're talking as?
This is the highest that is needed, the sheriff's office, and that's about half of our employees. We're looking at about a 13.5% increase. So increasing that starting wage by a little more than $3 per hour, and that trickles and runs down through that pay plan. And that's to be competitive with not necessarily the Wasatch Front, but here locally, because that's really who our competitors are. Logan, Smithfield, Brigham City, Box Elder. So,
Do you have an idea when you're going to talk about COLA as well?
as a compensation committee, we've talked about COLA, and that's something that I'll address next time and give you my thoughts and the committee's thoughts on COLA and what that does to our pay plan. So we're looking more at market and merit adjustments.
Okay.
Drew?
Okay, we've got about 5 minutes here. So,
Thank you all.
Thank you.
take the break.
Thanks, Dane.
Thanks, Dane.